GM who says Cam Ward would be the 7th rated passer in last year's draft, also noting that one team does not have a first-round grade on any of the quarterbacks. Should these anonymous notes concern the Titans?
They would me. I mean, in this regard, what would concern me is the exact point that first anonymous GM is making, which again, I'm not saying I'm the anonymous GM. It'd be weird because I'm not a GM, but it's the exact point I made on TV on Friday, which was
Fan of the show.
If these two drafts were one. If last year's draft and this year's draft were one, we all agree the consensus number one prospect would have been Caleb. Like again, you don't have their NFL tape. He was the consensus. 2, 3 would have been Drake May, Jaden Daniels, or Jaden Daniels, Drake May. And at 4 is the earliest you start talking Cam Ward, and you're probably actually talking him at 6 or 7.
I got to pause really, really fast. I'm going to let this play, but I just got to, interject real fast because this is hilarious because Nick just kind of proved his own point wrong. Because you're saying the prospect, the consensus was that Caleb was number 1 and Jaden Daniels might be 3, Drake May ahead. And yet Jaden Daniels proved to be light years ahead of everyone else. He just did. He literally had the greatest rookie season of all time, including playoffs. It's not up for debate. It's not up for debate. Okay? So we kind of just disproved this idea of, these evaluations going into the draft as being the word from the heavens. So if anything, shouldn't that give people some pause? Shouldn't that make people be like, you know what? Maybe we don't have all the answers. Maybe a made up, he would be the 7th rated passer in the 24 draft. Maybe that doesn't mean a whole ton. It's information. It's interesting, sure. But is it the word from the good book? Probably not. And yet, we still treat it as such. Also, I'd love to know, an anonymous GM from where? From where? Kansas City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Buffalo, or Carolina? New York? Like, where are we actually going with this here? There's a lot of not-so-good GMs out there in the NFL because there's a lot of not-so-good teams. So,
okay. And that concerns me. And so I think that is a legitimate concern that does being the best quarterback in this year's draft mean much of anything if you are the 9th best quarterback in the last, in a 4-year bucket of drafts. And so, yeah, that would be concerning in my eyes, Greg. You think that's stupid?
I think it's the dumbest thing ever.
Really?
I truly do. So a guy who probably knew he wasn't top 5 in last year's draft can say, you know what? Let me stay a year and I'll be 1 or 2 in this year's draft. It happens all the time. And we want to now all of a sudden say, you know what? The guys who are already playing in the NFL who were drafted last year, they will get drafted higher than that guy. Well, so what? We're in this year's draft. He's the number 1 rated quarterback on a lot of boards, a lot of general managers' boards, regardless of how they feel about him, regardless if they have a first round grade. If you have a quarterback need and you have Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders on your board, most general managers, most organizations have Cam Ward rated higher. So what does it matter about last year's guys?
I guess it matters in this regard. I think this is how they're looking at it. Would the Tennessee Titans be willing to give up the number 1 pick of the draft for Michael Penix? And I'll use Penix because he was the kind of median draft point last year. He was 4 of 6. He doesn't have an injury like JJ, and he's kind of somewhat of a blank slate. You know what I mean? We didn't see him. I think most people would be like, no.
Michael Penix actually in the 3 games that he played with the Atlanta Falcons that were at the end of the season were actually light years better. Again, not even close. Light years better than all the other starting quarterbacks, Bo Nix, Caleb, and even Jaden Daniels in their first 3 games. So he literally had his first 3 games were significantly better than those other quarterbacks. Again, Jaden Daniels went on to have it. So what Michael Penix did with the Atlanta Falcons was actually awesome. And the throws that he made in those games, and those games mattered. The Falcons were like, please, Daddy, please save us. Kirk Cousins is really bad right now. Please, if you play well, we can get into the playoffs. So please help us. Like the amount of pressure and the situation that they just threw Penix out there was absolutely wild. Absolutely wild for a first year, rookie quarterback. And yet he passed with flying colors. But again, to kind of now twist this and be like, oh, well, would you draft him number 1 overall? It's the wrong conversation. It's just straight up the wrong conversation. I mean, and again, it becomes this kind of like revisionist history as well. And the information that you have, like Nick, until he's blue in the face, would say Caleb should be drafted number 1 overall. Caleb should be drafted number 1 overall. And yet he also then conceded months later, that Jaden Daniels is having the season that he was confident Caleb Williams was going to have. An MVP candidate, lead his team to an NFC championship game, be a game away from the Super Bowl. Remember when Nick said that Caleb is going to be a top 5 quarterback, MVP candidate, lead them to the Super Bowl? None of that happened. And if we now go back in time, if we want to play this game that Nick is trying to play right now, we could easily say, if you have the number 1 overall pick, which quarterback are you picking? It doesn't matter. You don't have Mahomes. You don't have Josh Allen. You don't have any of these guys. Everyone's starting new for some weird reason. I am positive, and I'll be nice and forgiving and just give one team out there. But that 99.9% of the teams, it'll be, 31 out of 32 teams will all pick Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. There's not a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Not a shadow of a doubt. I'll give one team out there that would still see something special. And I think Caleb's a good player, by the way, so this isn't a knock on Caleb. But, like, that's just how special and how great and how awesome Jaden Daniels was. So to kind of do this whole game here, and also this anonymous GM saying, oh, this would be the 7th rated passer, that now implies that then that's equivalent to Penix, which is absurd because also, like, there's more important aspect, not more important, but there's other important aspects of what it takes to be a quarterback, the type of throws you're making, your level of mobility, your level of maturity, it's your speed, your strength, your physicality, your agility. Like it's not just this vacuum passer. I got news for you. Joe Burrow is a better passer than Patrick Mahomes. Fight me on it. It is a fact. Joe Burrow is a better passer than Patrick Mahomes. So you could say Joe Burrow is a higher passer, is a higher rated passer than Patrick Mahomes. Go ask Nick who he would rather have as a quarterback. I'd rather have Mahomes over Joe Burrow. So to just look at it through this one category is also like so narrowly limited. It doesn't even make sense. And not to mention, JJ McCarthy threw the ball like 12 times a game. That like people were like saying he doesn't throw enough. You have John Middlecoff being like, JJ McCarthy doesn't throw at all. Michigan was winning games having him just hand the ball in entire second halves. He wouldn't throw the ball once. So like they also said that Bo Nix had a weak arm and can't throw. And yet he's balling, throwing dimes all over the place. Like, oh gosh, man. These ratings going into the draft are always just such nonsense. And if these GMs really, really deeply understood, where to rate people, then go ask why their success rate is like 30%. Go ask them. Why are so many quarterbacks missed in the draft? I would love to know that answer. Crazy.
You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't give it the number 1 pick of the draft for Michael Penix. What this guy is saying is, but Michael Penix projects to be a way better player than Cam Ward, who you're going to happily draft with the number 1 pick. I think that's the logic behind it.
And I understand that, but
that's not
the
logic,
supply isn't as vast.
That's correct. Yeah.
The demand is still high. So I mean, if you are a team that has a need at the most valuable position in the game of football, meaning quarterback, none of that matters.
Yeah, and this is the last point, because they're just going to start talking in circles now and going cyclical. Nick just had in a previous segment where they were discussing about trading the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants. That if they're not going to draft a quarterback, Nick just said it is a mistake. And he says it is always a mistake that if you need a quarterback and you're drafting top 5 to not draft a quarterback. And he goes, see, the Browns drafted Myles Garrett, and he's an amazing player. And it being a mistake, they needed a quarterback. And the Giants, they drafted Saquon Barkley. And I made a whole video discussing how that logic actually doesn't make sense. And now, here the Titans are, number 1 overall pick, and yet they should draft a quarterback. And now we're saying, though, that drafting this quarterback is concerning. You understand? Like, that's why we can't have blanket statements in the NFL. Every time you make a blanket statement, you're going to find a whole bunch of holes in it. Okay? So, yeah. I don't know. And then, again, how did we jump to saying that Penix is going to be a way better prospect than Cam Ward? Like, how did we go from there to there? Like, I don't even understand. And like, like, again, we can even use Bo Nix as another great example because Nick thinks that Bo Nix is a bad quarterback. Nick said that Bo Nix wasn't even going to be a starter. That he was going to be like the 3rd best quarterback in the quarterback room. And yet he then led the Denver Broncos to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. So there's like too many ways to slice this that it's frying my brain. And I should have opened with this, but I just saw red immediately. I said this in one of my videos that I recorded yesterday about the Giants, and because now there was whispers about the Giants trading their pick. And I said, I see that. And then I went on a whole rant where I was like, I woke up this morning and I went to ESPN.com and there was a story out that said, the opposite. Because it was like, oh, the Giants are interested in Dart. And then I saw another story that was like, oh, no, the Giants are interested in Shedeur Sanders. And it was just like, okay, like, which is, oh, so they're interested in one of those 2 quarterbacks, one of the 2 available quarterbacks after Cam Ward. Like, oh, wow, breaking news. And like, we're in the final couple days before the draft is official. And so it's just like everyone's just trying to get out all the last minute stories that they possibly can. And it's just like, here we are right now, right? Anonymous GM says Cam Ward would be the 7th rated passer in 2024. Okay. Well, right now, Caleb Williams, and I believe Caleb Williams will be a great player. Caleb Williams, starter, I believe will be a great player and will be redeemed this coming year. Jaden Daniels, all-time great rookie year. Bo Nix leading that team, Denver Broncos to the playoffs, I think played awesome. Literally won Troy Aikman over. Michael Penix, dude, go watch those final 3 games. Look what he kind of got thrown into. Was making some unbelievable throws. Was so composed as a rookie, thrown in at the end of the season with the whole team's hopes and dreams of the playoffs thrown onto his shoulders, and he was not a problem, right? J.J. McCarthy, also a high prospect, unfortunately got injured, but the Vikings are very confident in him. They got rid of Sam Darnold and said, hey, we already won 14 games. We don't care. We're moving on with J.J. A lot of belief in him. So, like, we're looking at quarterbacks who all, as of right now, appear to be like bona fide starters in the NFL. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with drafting a bona fide starter in the NFL? Like, Jaden Daniels was a top 10 quarterback last year. Bo Nix, look at the stats, especially when you go onward, when you remove his first handful of games, which, when he was a rookie, his first few games, same thing with Jaden Daniels. He was top 10 in a lot of stats. With not a stacked roster, not a great offense, had 0 run support. 0. So, okay, that draft was a great draft with lots of great quarterbacks. Yeah, okay. So you're either a top 5 quarterback in the NFL or you're just garbage, you're just trash, you're just nothing, move on. That's the world that we always live in the NFL. It's always you're either Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or you're just trash, you're just garbage. And it's just like, it's not exactly how it works. So we're missing the mark with this one. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Tennessee Titans drafting Cam Ward? Should this concern Tennessee? Are you concerned by this? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.